Hi, I'm Dr. Monika Buerger, and I can't wait to share 3 things that we need to think about with connecting with kids or adults on the autism spectrum scale. So, today we're going to dive into an incredibly interesting topic that's been going on. It's April, it's Autism Awareness Month. And I was teaching at the Medical Academy of Pediatric Specialties seminar a few weeks ago. We call it MAPS. And this interesting conversation came up when we're looking at connecting. And this is going to be our key word today. We're going to talk about 3 connections we want to consider when we're working with individuals on the autism spectrum. One, there's been an interesting set of podcasts going around called the Telepathy tapes. And this was, I got to hang out with some dear friends at the MAPS conference that have been in the autism world for many years. And from researchers to pediatricians to other chiropractors to you name it, it was just a beautiful blend of people there for the same cause. And the conversation of these telepathy tapes came up. So what are they? I challenge you to go out there and listen to them. But essentially, it is a reporter and a neuroscientist that came together to explore the intelligence of individuals that are referred to as non-speakers. Because we know individuals across the board, kiddos, adults that have developmental differences, oftentimes are non-speakers. They don't have acquisition of language, or they're very mild acquisition of language. And so over the years, and since I've been in practice over 34 years, I've seen the technology changes with helping those that don't have those verbal skills, anywhere from devices called talkers. In the school assisted programs, a lot of times they have a device called the talker, and teaching these individuals how to use this to help communicate. Now, since then, technology has advanced so greatly, right? So now we have computers and we have iPads and we have all these different accessories. And what's been so amazing is when these individuals that are able to finally talk through these devices and express themselves, what they're telling us. And for me, it's been very heartwarming and fascinating, because so much is what I've been teaching over the last 30 plus years was basically on the foundation, the neurological foundation of the disconnect between the brain and the body and the brain. And as I've told probably every parent of kiddos that I've worked with, that they are brilliant. They're very brilliant. Some of them are just savant level brilliant. Lots of times they get told that their child isn't in there, right? But they are. And so I personally never give up hope on these individuals. And I tell parents that. But now what we're able to hear from so many of these individuals from themselves by using these assistive devices, and what they're telling the world it's just so heartwarming. And I'm going to cover 3 things that I've always taught in all of my programs, that I teach in my programs now, and that I try to employ myself in my practice, because I believe that these individuals are in there. They can express themselves to us if we listen. So, one thing that caught my ear listening to these tapes was the collaboration between the reporter and the neuroscientist, and devising studies that could potentially be scientifically valid and not being seen as skewed one way or the other. So one of the things that came up, and we know that a lot of kiddos, individuals with neurodevelopmental challenges, have poor motor control. In fact, in many of my teachings, I've talked a lot about core postural motor control and how essential it is, because it is one of the number one predictors of developmental delay, and especially of autism. So when we look at our motor milestones that these kiddos should be developing in that first year of life, those build upon these gross and fine motor skills that are so often that are a key core component of neurodevelopmental challenges. Okay. So they're called predictor of interests. In one of these cases in these telepathy tapes, they talked about a mom helping a child use one of these assistive devices, these talkers. And they talked about how they help these individuals learn how to use them because their fine motor skills and their gross motor skills can be so delayed. So they talked about how the concern was if the parent, the mom, was helping one of the children use these devices during a study, does that potentially mean that the outcomes, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because you should listen to the tapes, the outcomes aren't valid because it's skewed by what the mom was doing? Okay, and this is what the mom was doing. Was initially because of the poor fine motor control, and this is how they do it in the schools too, is oftentimes they'll take the child's wrist or hand and stabilize it first, and even take their fingers to have them point on the letters or the pictures on these talking devices. And that's because they don't have good proprioception. They don't have good fine or gross motor skills. And by giving them deep pressure, so this is things that I've talked about for years, that deep proprioception, that deep pressure helps the brain wake up. Basically, it's telling the brain, I have hands, I have fingers. How can I potentially use them when I'm doing a certain task? And by the caregiver or the teacher's aide or the parent, school or whatever, first assisting the child and giving that deep compression and helping them, that starts to build that motor pattern. So that brain is, oh, waking up. I have fingers. How do I use them? So they would go from stabilizing the wrist to maybe the elbow to maybe the shoulder, and then maybe just putting some pressure on the forehead. And that is how we can help basically tell the brain what's going on. And it's called proprioception. So you got tactile and proprioceptive input, two key sensory systems that the brain needs to know where my body is in space. What limbs do I have? How do I move them? So I found that very interesting when they were talking about that study design and how they're getting these individuals to utilize these talking devices. And it's things that I've been teaching in my program for decades, right? So fine motor skills are lacking. How do we wake up the brain? How do we give them the tools and stair step them up to the point to retrain the brain to understand, to connect the brain to the body and the body to the brain? In one of the other segments, it was interesting again. And for me, it was so exciting because it's everything that from a left brain, scientific, logical reasoning part to hearing this from their perspective and their feelings. And it just, for me, was exciting to synergistically put this together. One of the other individuals in these tapes talked about just knowing that he had a body, and how to use it and move through space. And his brain didn't even realize that he had a body to use. Again, gross motor skills have to be on point. You have to have good core motor in order to get fine motor. These are such a common thread in individuals with neurodevelopmental challenges. So it just verified that doing the work to get the connection between the brain and the body and the brain, to get the awareness that they have a body, is absolutely crucial for these individuals to navigate their world. And hearing that validation was just so amazing. So, two connections there: fine motor, gross motor, adding proprioception, knowing that they are in there, they are alive, they're brilliant individuals. It's really about connecting that information and allowing their body to understand, their brain understand their body, and their body to understand how to move. And that takes me to my third point. My third connection was, it just solidified that what we're doing in the chiropractic world, how incredibly profound it is for me from multiple perspectives. One, if we have a vertebral subluxation and we have lack of input into the brain about the status of the body, of course the brain's not going to know what's being able to interpret what's going on. And they can't do these skills. Remember, speech is a fine motor skill, right? Two, it solidified for me that they have an energetic, innate ability to connect to individuals that they feel safe with. And that is a key point. Kids and animals in particular know when they're safe. They know who they can trust. And that's when healing can come into the realm, when they're in a safe environment and they can allow themselves to open up and receive. So more than ever, it has solidified, these telepathy tapes have solidified for me that I need to make sure I'm in the best state as possible. I need to take care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, chemically, as much as I can. But when I'm there, when I'm in the practice and I have my hands on these individuals, whoever it is, whatever age they are, but especially those with maybe some developmental struggles or challenges, that I'm innately grounded and in tune as much as I can be with them. And I am asking permission from them to work with them, not work on them, to work with them. And I don't care what age they are. Just the other day, last week, I saw a baby and mom and worked on them with them at the same time. And this was a high risk little one. He's only 3 months old. It was a high risk little one, bunch of complications anyway. And she had a miscarriage at 15 weeks with a child prior to that anyway. And this little one was so guarded these first 3 months of his life. And he's finally, I could just feel that he felt safe enough. And the mom was less on guard too about him being able to thrive in this world. And they both just beautifully let go together. And so they returned again this week, and the mom was like, it was an amazing experience for 3 days after that. But I asked permission from mom and from this little 3-month-old to help them decrease the stress off their body, to allow their nervous system to regulate and heal. And it's a big difference when you approach it from that angle versus we're going in and we're doing what we want to do. So many of these kiddos, especially post-COVID age, are coming into this world so stressed out and so on cortisol drive and so rigid and so blocked. If we go in there too fast and too furious without acknowledging where they're at, where their nervous system is at, what is allowed at that point in time, we can blow those circuits. And I'm going to talk more about that in my next segment. Not today, but my next segment. I'm going to give you a specific case of a 10-year-old little pandas girl. Wrapping this up today, though, the 3 connections I want you to understand is motor skills are important, that we've talked about before. Gross motor comes before fine motor. But how important it is to give them that deep, that tactile proprioceptive input to help them wake up their brain. In this case, they were able to start expressing themselves by using a talker, but we don't know the profound effects that can happen when we're allowing their brain to wake up to their body and other ways they're going to be able to express themselves. 2, these individuals are telling us now that we've been on point all these years, that they are in there. They just don't realize they have a body or how to use it. And again, if they have vertebral subluxations, they're not going to get that afferent input to the brain to even know they have a body. And that's my 3rd connection, is the power of chiropractic from all aspects, from the adjustment to the knowing, to you innately and energetically being on point, and the power that we have from a different viewpoint than so many other practitioners out there. So those are my 3 connections for this segment, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And hopefully it gives you a little bit of inspiration to know when you are working with individuals that have challenges, and especially non-speakers, the profound effect you can have on the lives of these individuals and giving them a life. That's a wrap for me. I'm Dr. Monika Buerger, and join me at the Academy of Neurodevelopmental Practices, where we give you this and a whole lot more, and a lot of ways to implement these awesome neuromotor patterns needed for the first year of life.